Ahoy there, me hearties, and welcome back to the Tekking101 Pirate Discussion Hour. Yarg. Okay. But no, in all seriousness, if there is one criticism that I have about the One Piece manga, something that I am just gonna hold Oda's feet to the fire with right now, it's that the Straw Hats do not dress piratey enough for my liking. I mean, look at Luffy, for God's sake, walking around with a straw hat instead of a proper pirate bicorn displaying the skull and bones. Zoro using katanas to fight because, oh, that's historically accurate. He should be using a proper cutlass or scimitar for his swordplay, and I don't remember reading any historical text seeing Anne Bonny, the lady pirate, wandering around in a bikini top sporting breast implants the size of watermelons. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Nami's boobs are 100% natural. I mean, Usopp's using a slingshot instead of a flintlock. You know, the only Straw Hat that actually holds to historical accuracies is Brook, because according to these pictures, there were apparently a lot of pirates that were skeletons. Also Frankie, because I'm pretty sure the king of the pirates, Henry Avery, could breathe fire. Fairly certain on that. But no, let's talk about a real pirate crew this time around, because after the last chapter, Luffy, I'm pretty sure he's out of commission. He's knocked in a coma for a little while, so let's follow the Blackbeard pirates and see what they're up to, because we got some hot news on them, ladies and gentlemen. We got some new facts for the Blackbeard crew, and before I even get into this, though, I have to give a huge shout-out to Artur-Sama over at the Library of Ohara for his amazing translation powers. He actually probably ate like the translate no me, because he gets all this information out really quick. This info comes from the VIVRE data book that was released a few months ago in Japan, and unfortunately, as with the case with a lot of anime data books, even though One Piece is the most popular manga in the world, very rarely do we ever get like an international translated, you know, copies of data books. Like I have one of the data books right here. This is Blue Deep. It was released a few years back. A fan actually sent this to me. But it's in Japanese. Like, there's not a translated version of this anywhere, which really does suck, because I remember Bleach, and they actually released a few data books from that series in English. The first two. There was Souls, and then there was Masked, and the third data book for Bleach, Unmasked, which is actually buried somewhere in there. That was never given an English release, but it is kind of weird that they don't have English releases of these, considering One Piece is so popular, but made even more difficult with the most recent data book, which is VIVRE, because it works in a completely different way than every other data book. It doesn't actually have all the information in it at once. VIVRE, from what I understand, is actually more like a trading card binder, and what you do is every month they release 2 new booster packs featuring various arcs in the One Piece world, and each card has like a new character or ability or something, and then you can fill in the VIVRE, you know, binder however you want. So I could see them, I mean, like, this is a practical method of like, oh, we can get more money this way. We'll release the data book as like a card binder. You gotta pick that up, and then you gotta go and collect all the booster packs, and then after you catch them all, you can make the data book however you want to. So that just makes it even more difficult. So huge props to Artur-Sama. I'm gonna leave links to the Library of Ohara in the description, as well as a link to his Patreon. I'm a patron of his, and he's just a really cool dude. We might do a collab at some point in the future. We're in talks to see how that's gonna work. But yeah, for right now though, normally the information we get from the booster packs, and this isn't even the first booster release. I think this is actually the third one. This is ones for Arlong Park and Logtown is one of the boosters, and then Impel Down is the other boosters. So we find out a lot of information about like the Impel Down staff and Nami and Nojiko and Smoker and Tashigi and everybody, as well as the Blackbeard crew. But normally the information that we get from these boosters is just like characters' heights and their ages and their favorite foods, you know, stuff of that nature. Not something I could really make a whole video about. Well, I guess I could make a whole video about it, but maybe you might not be all interested in talking about Sakazuki's love for red hot chili peppers and white rice, or Kizaru's addiction to bananas too much there. But the thing is, with the Blackbeard pirates, we already don't know that much stuff about them, especially the new members, the ones from level 6. So any information at all is very useful here, and we find out quite a few interesting things about them here beyond just their names and, I mean, their ages and heights and things. And oh, by by the way, we also get confirmations that they have bounties. At least most of them do. We know Blackbeard, Shiryu, Alvaro Pizarro, CATARINA Devon, San Juan Wolf, VASCO Shot. They all have bounties. We just don't know what they are. But at least the confirmation is nice. There's also going to be some information in here about Dragon, because we find out some stuff about him as well as his age and the fact that, yes, Monkey D. Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, does in fact have a wanted poster. He has a bounty. Most of us could already figure that, but it's never really been brought up beyond of him just being stated as the world's most wanted man. But yes, he does in fact have a bounty. So yeah, let's get into the Blackbeard pirate stuff first. So as we all know, ever since the time skip, you know, their crew has expanded greatly. Okay, starting off with their humble beginnings after Blackbeard just defects the Whitebeard crew and he has a crew of like 5 people and they're just sailing around on that raft. After the events of Marineford, they managed to enlist some of the strongest pirates of all of history from level 6 of Impel down. And then after that, they leave, and over the 2-year time skip, they become a Yonko fleet. Okay, so they have an entire fleet of ships, and Blackbeard himself heads up what he calls the 10 Titanic captains. So Blackbeard himself is referred to as the admiral of his fleet, and then he has 10 pirates that are like the heads of each individual fleet. Alright, so far in the story, we only knew about 3 of them. We knew that Jesus Burgess was the head of the first ship, was the captain of the first ship, I should say. So he's one of the 10 Titanic captains. And then later on, we find out that Shiryu is the 2nd fleet captain, and that Lafitte is the 5th fleet captain. Okay, but through the VIVRE card booster packs, we found out that Alvaro Pizarro is the 4th fleet captain. CATARINA Devon is the 6th fleet captain. San Juan Wolf is the 7th fleet's captain, and VASCO Shot is the 8th fleet's captain. Now, that leaves the 3rd, 9th, and 10th slots open. Keep in mind, Blackbeard himself does not apply to this because he's the admiral of the entire crew. Okay, so, the ones so far that we do not know that have positions that left out here, because for some reason we didn't find out information on every single member of the Blackbeard Pirates. We didn't find out information about Van Auger or Doc Q or Stronger, who is Doc Q's horse. So, Van Auger, I'm going to assume, is most definitely a Titanic captain because he was a member of the original crew, and he's pretty strong. He's one of the best snipers in the entire One Piece world, if not the best sniper. And considering that the 3rd fleet is open, I'm going to assume Van Auger is going to be the 3rd fleet captain. I think that's, I'm pretty okay stating that. Now, the issue with Doc Q is even though he was an original member, he's a very sickly old man. Now, this might be a facade. We might find out later that he might have some ability. He's actually really dangerous, or maybe his devil fruit, maybe he ate a disease fruit that makes himself really ill, but he can maybe spread that disease to other people. The first time we saw Doc Q, he was pulling some like Sleeping Beauty shit, where he was trying to offer people like apples that ended up exploding or some shit. So yeah, it might turn out that like if you accept food from him, or if he touches you, he can like infect you with the plague or something. So he might be strong in his own right, but he has a very sickly sort of constitution, as well as his horse. So I was a little dubious at putting him in the, you know, Titanic captain slot, but considering he is a member of the original crew, and hey, you gotta figure, Blackbeard would not take on a member of his crew that's like this sickly old man and he wasn't good for anything, right? If he was just ready to keel over any second, you know, Blackbeard wouldn't accept him. So I'm gonna assume, okay, let's make Doc Q the 9th Titanic captain, but that still leaves 1 slot, the 10th. And I'm just gonna throw this out there, we don't really know where this person lies on the crew, or if they're even part of the crew, but we do know that Kuzan, former Admiral Aokiji, joined up with the Blackbeard Pirates, or is at least an ally of them at the very least. So I'm just gonna say, if Kuzan joined up with the Blackbeard crew, and if Blackbeard trusted him, or maybe Kuzan said something or gave something to Blackbeard to get him to trust him, you know, or maybe hell, maybe if Kuzan just came to him and was like, that freaking bastard Akainu beat the crap out of me and took over the Marines, I don't want to be part of it anymore, I'll join up with you, your crew, if it means that I'll be able to take that guy down a peg. That might not be how Kuzan actually feels, but if he said that or something, he had to say something to convince Blackbeard to be his ally, you know, I don't think Blackbeard would just be like, okay, former Marine Admiral, join up with me, I'm not gonna ask any questions beyond that. So, yeah, if that's the case, and if Kuzan is part of the crew proper, then let's make him a Titanic captain too. too. I think it fits, so we can make him the 10th. Okay, but beyond that, if he isn't, then they had to add somebody else to the crew in the time skip that we just don't know about. We still have yet to see Blackbeard properly since the time skip. We've seen his Den Den Mushi, and we've seen him in silhouette in one of the most recent chapters when we found out Luffy's new bounty. But yeah, beyond that, we haven't really seen him in full view. So yeah, we'll get to that point eventually, and we'll probably get introduced to a few new members of his crew because it's just so freaking huge now. But yeah, that's the way I'm looking at the Titanic captains right now at this moment. Okay, so let's talk about this. We actually got a name for Blackbeard's flagship, okay? And this, it sounds awesome, okay? I'm gonna put it up because I'm probably gonna butcher the pronunciation a little bit, but I'm gonna put it up here. Blackbeard's main flagship is the SABER of XEBEC. I probably messed up that last word. According to my notes, or according to Artur's notes, an XEBEC is a type of ship. Okay, and we all know what a saber is, right? It's a proper pirate tool. So yeah, the SABER of XEBEC. That is awesome beyond reason, okay? I want to just put you, in perspective here. Okay, you're living in the One Piece world. Okay, and you're living on an island in the New World, and everything seems to be peace and happiness, and you're waking up in the morning like, hearing the birds singing and all that, and you're like, okay, go collect some water in the well. I'm like, alright, I'll do that. And you get up, and you go outside, and you see the chickens, you feed them, you go over to the well, you start hoisting up the bucket, and then you look out to sea. And you see an entire, just a dark cloud on the horizon. And in front of that dark cloud is Blackbeard's flagship. And then you're the first person to see it. So you get the distinct pleasure of running around town screaming to the top of your lungs, the SABER of XEBEC is coming! We're all gonna die! That is an intimidating flagship name, okay? Everybody from miles around needs to know the name of that ship, okay? The SABER of XEBEC. Probably not pronouncing XEBEC right, because not a lot of words start with the letter X, but there needs to be more of them, okay? But yeah, anyway. Moving on to some info. We don't actually get a lot of information regarding Blackbeard, about Teach himself. So I apologize. That would be really cool if we found out more about him, but I really genuinely think that Oda is keeping everything involving him a more of a mystery. Not just what he looks like now, but also like his bounty, what it's at currently. Because remember, when Blackbeard teamed up with the Warlords, he had 0 bounty. Yeah, he was the only warlord that has 0 bounty, okay? And then, of course, after that, I'm sure it shot through the roof overnight. In fact, his bounty might have went, considering all the crap he pulled at Marineford, it might have went from, 0 to, 1 billion overnight. And I think that would be completely, acceptable, considering all the crap that Blackbeard did. Totally justified. But yeah, we don't really find out much more about Blackbeard himself, but I think Oda's keeping that a mystery for later. But, somebody we do find out a lot more about, Shiryu of the Rain, who is the 2nd fleet commander I mentioned, and is also the, head jailer from Impel Down that they broke out, okay? Now, here's the thing. First off, we get a name for Shiryu's sword. Yes, we do. It is Ryu. And it just means thunderstorm. So Ryu is the name of his blade. It does have a Meito grade, does not specify the exact rank, but yeah, there's the name for it. So this will probably put to rest a lot of theories that I've seen for a while now, even after the revealing of Nidai Katetsu. I've still seen some people say this, but people were really, they really wanted Shiryu's sword to be the Shodai Katetsu. They wanted it to be a curse blade, okay? And to be fair, it might be a curse blade, because just because it's a Meito, they're not exclusive. You can have a sword that's cursed and not a Meito, or vice versa, or both. Like Law's sword, Kikoku, it's not a Meito grade sword, but it's still cursed. So yeah, you could have something like that, considering Shiryu's epithet is of the rain, and I think he got that because, he cuts so many people up that, the blood will pour down like rain. That's the way I considered it. And it also makes sense that his sword is called Ryu, which means thunderstorm, so it's like, Shiryu of the Rain, here is my blade, thunderstorm. So, okay, pretty crazy there. But yeah, that's the name of that. And there is one more note here that Artur translated, and that's, even if many consider them equals, Shiryu definitely feared Magellan. Okay, so that I'm really happy with, because that makes Magellan a little bit more threatening, because I know some people were like, oh, Magellan, you know, he's a diarrhea freaking demon or whatever, he's staying in the freaking bathroom all day, you know, he doesn't really that good at his job, especially since the level 6 fiasco where he got the crap beat out of him. But hey, you gotta consider this, you know, like, the way I look at this, and I mentioned this when I did Magellan's video about last month, but it's like, when Magellan went down there and he saw all of level 6 in a riot, because Blackbeard freed, like, the 6 strong, like, not the 6, but, like, all these strongest prisoners from level 6 and took them, but there was an absolute riot down there. I can imagine that Magellan took out a lot of freaking prisoners down there before they finally just ganged up on him and took him down, okay? But, yeah, when you consider this, Shiryu definitely feared Magellan. That made it seem like, that made it much more believable whenever he got put in his jail cell. Like, when Shiryu was going around just carving up prisoners like Thanksgiving turkey and didn't even care, and just satiate his own bloodlust. Magellan came up to him and he's like, you know what, I can't have this anymore, you're too much of a liability, I'm exerting my authority as a warden and I'm putting you under arrest. You know, Shiryu might not have even fought back there. Maybe he might have tried to intimidate Magellan, like, do you really want to do that? But I think, like, a full-scale battle between those two, like, that would have been something, like, we definitely would have, like, seen the aftermath of, because Shiryu did not get put into level 6 much before, you know, long before the time that Luffy broke in. It was, like, kind of right before that, from what we understand. So, yeah, I can see Shiryu kind of, like, turning to Magellan after he said that, like, I'm putting you under arrest, Shiryu! Shiryu just kind of turned to him and just kind of, like, grabbed his sword, Ryu, Thunderstorm, and is just like, sure about that? And they just had, like, the epicest of all stare downs, and Magellan's like, Shiryu's like, maybe he unsheaths his sword just a little bit, like, ka-chink, Magellan starts the poison armor shit, Hydra pops out, and Shiryu just kind of like, here, gives him his sword and just walks down to level 6 and, like, locks himself up. He's like, I'll get out of here eventually. So yeah, I think Shiryu at the end of the day knew that, like, yeah, he might have been able to take Magellan, like, if he got a good, you know, shot off on Ryu and just, you know, struck Magellan, he might have been able to take him out, but at the same time, Shiryu was smart enough to know, like, if he gets hit, if he misses, or if the poison hits him first, Magellan has a wider range, if he gets poisoned, he's going down. Okay, so Shiryu was smart enough to be like, I'm not even gonna risk it, alright, let me see how long this plays out. And he wasn't in prison for very long, from what we understand. So that's about Shiryu. We find more information about Avalo Pizarro, which I was really interested in, because Pizarro was actually the only prisoner that was not mentioned, was not name-dropped by Ivankov. Remember when Ivankov was talking to Bon Clay about the existence of level 6, and Ivankov was going on and on about how, oh, there's so many horrible beasts down there. We have the heavy drinker VASCO shot, and CATARINA Devon, the world's, you know, most dangerous woman, and all these horrible people. Did she mention San Juan Wolf? She might have not have mentioned San Juan. No, I think she did. Yeah, I think she mentioned Wolf. But she didn't mention Pizarro. And then all of a sudden at Marineford, he shows up, and he's kind of pushed off to the side. We don't really focus on him too much. We didn't even get a full view of what he looked like for a long time. I remember people were confused by his arms, because his arms, just looking at the manga, seemed to be like gauntlets or drills or mechanical or something. I think they are just gauntlets, but people thought that he might have been part cyborg back then. It's kind of redundant to say part cyborg, because if you're a cyborg, you're already part human and robot, but you know what I mean. But yeah, we find information about him. So he's the 4th Fleet captain, and also he originally hails from the North Blue territory, so the same as Doflamingo and Law, and and the Germa as well. And it really does seem to me like the North Blue, whereas the East Blue was the most peaceful and the weakest sea, it really does appear to me that the North was the most dangerous sea, because look at all the heavy hitters that came from the North. We had Doflamingo and his entire family. There was a was it Hawkins? There was a supernova that came from the North Blue as well. But then you also have Law, and then you have the Germa, and then you have Avalo Pizarro. And it was stated that he was the king of a kingdom there because his epithet is the corrupted king Avalo Pizarro, and he was overthrown by his people just because of how corrupt and twisted he was. Okay, so he basically, being a king doesn't mean you get elected, right? It's the same thing like with Wapple, you know, it's like, my daddy was a king, so therefore I'm the king as well. So I can maybe imagine it's something similar to like what happened with Wapol, except whereas Wapol was just very, very lazy, he was cruel as well, but I think he was more lazy than cruel, alright, and just wanted to exert his power. Pizarro might have taken it to some freaky deaky places. Okay, for the title of Corrupted King, and to get landed right in level 6 Impel Down, which is a place, I may remind you, is where when you commit crimes that are just so damn evil that they want to be just, the government wants to just wipe them from the earth. Pizarro did a lot worse stuff than anything Wapol could have ever cooked up, okay? Probably even maybe worse than what Doflamingo did with Dressrosa with the toys. I mean, he got thrown in level 6 too, but there's a whole slew of other stuff with Dofi. But Pizarro, I mean, he might have just been like, I will rally half of the island together. Hey, let's take all the women and children and have them fight all of the old men. Let's have them do that. Like, there might have been some serious messed up things going on in Pizarro's kingdom that I don't even want to think about, right? Maybe you could comment them down below if you want to. What was the thing that managed to get him reject? Oh, you know what it was? I'll tell you exactly what it was. This is horrible. I can't believe this just dawned on me. I don't even want to mention it. Pizarro probably took away all the candy from his kingdom except for licorice. That's what he did. I guarantee you. He's like, today's decree, the only candy available in my kingdom is licorice! Licorice is the most evil candy ever invented. I hate it. It's horrible. I don't even want to... I'm gonna get going or else I'm gonna puke. And also, by the way, we find out the heights about a few of these, you know, the members of the Blackbeard Pirates as well. And Pizarro and VASCO Shot are really tall. Like, they're about as tall as Katakuri. Pizarro is slightly shorter than Katakuri. Katakuri, for reference, is 16 feet 8 inches or 5.9 meters tall, or 5.09 meters tall. Pizarro is 5.05 meters tall. And VASCO Shot is 5.73 meters at 18.9 feet. So it goes Pizarro, then Katakuri, and then VASCO Shot. But Katakuri, as we all know, pretty tall dude. So just to give their heights, you know, a general concept, there you go as well. And if you go down to the Library of Ohara, there's actually a like a height chart that Artur made that you can take a look at, like how they all stack up against each other there. Okay, so that was Pizarro. Pretty cool design, and interesting that he came from the North Blue, and that he really was a king that did some really horrible, heinous stuff that we just never... We'll probably find out about at some point, but for right now, just keep that in mind. Okay, so moving on to CATARINA Devon, the world's most wanted woman, also known as the Crescent Moon Hunter. She is the captain of the 6th Fleet, and it says here that she uses a whip as her weapon, but during Marineford, when she was, you know, attacking Whitebeard, when all of the Blackbeard crew came together to just like slam attacks into Whitebeard nonstop, she was using like a spear, but she might have just picked that up as just like an opportune, oh, that's a weapon, I guess I'll just make use of this. But yeah, she uses a whip as her main weapon here, and her backstory is also extremely dark. Okay, like I could probably, like, by this time next year, if we know more information about the Blackbeard Pirates, just expanding all this stuff that we just found out about, I could maybe do another 6 nights of Horroween where talking about all the dark stuff that the Blackbeard Pirates did. Okay, so get this. CATARINA Devon, okay, Crescent Moon Hunter. She became feared by women all across the world. Why? Because she makes it her personal mission to find every woman in the world that is more beautiful than she is, and then she decapitates them and keeps their heads as trophies. Yeah, we went there. So, she has a personal collection. Okay, so the second I read that, I was like, oh boy, when she sees Nami and Robin, I think that pretty much confirms right there that they're gonna fight. Like, at the end of the series, when or maybe not the end of the series, but at whatever point in the series, when the Blackbeard Pirates, the 10 Titanic captains, square off against the Straw Hats, which you know that's gonna happen. Like, there's members of Blackbeard's crew that are like the evil opposites of the Straw Hats. Like, Shiryu might as well be evil Zoro. Van Augur might as well be evil Usopp. And when it came to CATARINA Devon, she's the only woman that's ranking in the 10 Titanic captains, so I think it would make sense that, like, oh, she's gonna fight Nami or Robin. But now that we know her backstory and what she does on the weekends, I think we can all pretty much assume, like, CATARINA Devon, I could see it now, like, she spots, you know, Robin and Nami walking up to her, and she sees them, and we have a scene where she's just, like, examining their bodies, and, like, their flawless faces, those huge breasts, that perfect hair. I'm gonna slice them off! Oh boy, so that's gonna be a battle. Look forward to that in the future, but oh man, that's dark as hell. I don't know if Oda could even show that, because I'm imagining, like, seeing her barracks, like, this is CATARINA Devon's, like, her living quarters or whatever on her ship, and we could see, like, the severed heads, like, off to the side. Like, is Oda even allowed to show that? I don't know if he would be able to, but man, that's dark as hell. Okay. Well, that's her. We don't get much more information about that. She's also extremely tall. She's even taller than, like, Admiral, like, Kizaru and like, Aokiji and, you know, the Admirals just in general. Okay. So, okay. Moving on now. You know what? I think I'm gonna leave, San Juan Wolf for last. Because there's some stuff, we find out, I think, the most about him. And there's some stuff I want to talk about with San Juan Wolf. Okay, so let's move on to Vasco Shot. Alright, so Vasco is the 8th Fleet Captain. And, of course, his epithet is heavy drinker. So we always see him with a big glug of sake and also, this is just a side note, but Vasco actually has one of my favorite laughter styles in all of One Piece. So, you know, like, Blackbeard's laughter style is Zehahaha. Vasco's is just really just ridiculous, but that's why I love it. There's 2 versions of these that I've seen, okay? One of them is in the manga where it sounds like Topa 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 Topa. And the one that they have in the English anime, the way they translate it out is Topher 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 Topher. So I just find that hilarious because there's just like so many syllables in it. Like it's even beyond a laughter style, but it's like Topher Topher Topher. He sounds like a drunk when he's saying it, really. He's like, I need more booze, Captain. So, Vasco. Right. It says here that even amongst other level 6 prisoners, this dude was, like, a force to be reckoned with. Like, there's only so many levels down you can make. Like, even in level 6, that's where they throw all the scum of the world, but you can imagine there's ranks of the scum. Because remember, and this is something that I actually just, I was watching some Impel Down arc last night, and whenever Boa Hancock and Magellan and Hannibal and everybody go down to see Ace, you know, they have the scene where Hancock is, you know, looking at Ace and everything. There are a bunch of other random prisoners in the background that are just like catcalling Hancock. It's like, Hancock, come on, move that sexy body over here. Let me take a good look at, you know, that kind of stuff, that really creepy stuff. And then Magellan uses Hydra to poison them all. But those criminals, they just seem to be like random riffraff, okay? So they are in level 6 for a reason, but I think they're not even close to the same level as like Jinbei was, or Crocodile was, or, you know, Shiryu or Pizarro, right? So, like, if there was level 7 or level 8, like, probably Crocodile and Doflamingo would be down there, and probably Vasco Shot would be there as well. It says that, yeah, his looks are deceiving. You take one look at him, and he's a pretty tall dude. Like I said, he's like 18, he's almost 19 feet tall, right? So he's taller than Katakuri, so he's very imposing, but just his demeanor and his attitude, like he's a drunk, so he's just like, whatever, guys, let's just drink. Apparently, those looks are very deceiving, and very much like Hyozo, who was the blue-ringed octopus merman during Fishman Island. You know, he was a drunk too, but he was this incredibly adept swordsman, the best swordsman in all of Fishman Island. Vasco is the same way. You know, we still don't know how he fights. When he was attacking Whitebeard during Marineford, he used pistols, but we don't know if that's his prime method. You know, and yeah, just beyond that, he's just really tall and he's a really big, heavy drinker. But yeah, it's very ambiguous on how they handled Vasco, on how, like, they revealed the information in the data book. But keep an eye out for him, because if we're starting to rank the Blackbeard pirates by sheer strength, Vasco might be ranking pretty high. So let's just move on to San Juan Wolf. Okay, so, the first thing I should bring up about him is we find out he's a devil fruit user. Okay. Now, this is a good thing in a sense, because it explains how exactly that he managed to get into and out of Impel Down and all that stuff. So he has some type of devil fruit. We don't know the name of it. That wasn't revealed, or what type it was, but it has the ability to change his size. So San Juan Wolf is a giant, okay? It's not like he's, you know, he was a human that ate a fruit that allowed him to become really big or anything like that. No, he is a giant by birth. He actually hails from the West Blue, which is also cool because we already knew that there were other places aside from Elbaf where giants live. Saul mentioned as much, you know, I don't come from Elbaf. So there is some island in the West Blue that we know of that giants reign. So maybe Saul came from the same place as San Juan Wolf, because it mentions that he's a giant and his size as a giant is really not all that different from, it's like average for most giants, but he ate some kind of devil fruit that allows him to make himself huge, like, and they even give an upper limit. It says here he can make himself tall as 180 meters or 591 feet, so just shy of 600 feet. For comparison, I went and found some buildings or some structures that are about that same size. So first thing is that the Statue of Liberty on Liberty Island in New York City is only 305 feet tall. So San Juan Wolf is nearly twice the height of the Statue of Liberty. And I've actually been there before. I've been there and we had lunch like right underneath the statue, and that thing is huge. So now picturing that as double in size and as a giant onigiri giant, that is horrifying. And in terms of closer to his size, the Washington Monument in D.C., which I've also been to, and I've seen that a few times, is 555 feet, or 169 meters. So San Juan is even a little bit taller than the Washington Monument. So, yeah, he's a big dude. He's a big dude. Now, there is a problem with this. And no, by the way, it does state that he is taller than any other humanoid on the planet. So that might refer to, like, Sea Kings. Like, there's probably Sea Kings that are bigger than him. But aside from that, the largest humanoid. Now, there's an issue with the devil fruit thing because of this scene right here. Okay, so this is the scene after Marineford, after the Blackbeard pirates escape. They get on their raft and they get the hell out of there and they go to the New World and they're hanging out on some random fiery island in the New World. Might have actually been Punk Hazard now that I think about it. If they just arrived in the New World, then Punk Hazard would have been one of the first islands they would have landed on, so it might have been Punk. Well, no, it couldn't have been Punk Hazard because this was before Akainu and Akiji had their fight, which warped the island. So yeah, I guess this isn't Punk Hazard. It must be just some other random island at the beginning of the New World that happens to be on fire. Okay, whatever. Anyway, we see San Juan Wolf hanging out in the water, in the ocean, and he's just complaining that fish are biting him because what happened was the raft that they were on almost got capsized because of him and his size, and so they were waiting to exchange Jory Bonnie for a marine ship. And some people were very confused, me included, like, okay, but why would you think the Marines would have a ship big enough for him? You know, like, he's 180 meters tall. Okay, he's big, he's just as big to fit behind the main building at Marineford. Like, there's no way you're gonna have a boat big enough for him. Maybe like Thriller Bark, but aside from that, you're not getting one, right? So, from what we can understand, you know, he appeared super big to, I guess, intimidate everybody at Marineford, because once the giant, you know, the giant amongst giants is on your side, that kind of strikes terror in the hearts of men. But then afterwards, he might have shrunk himself down to normal giant size. And remember, a normal giant is only like 15 meters tall on average. The shortest giant that Oda actually came out and specified this, the shortest giant is only 12 meters. Okay, and then Big Mom is the tallest human that we know about so far, and she's 8.8 meters. Okay, so just to give you a size difference here. So it goes like Big Mom, and then here's the shortest giant that you could have, and then like an average giant like Dorian Broggy would be taller than that, like 15 meters, like almost twice the size of Big Mom. Then you have Oars, who is the size of 4 giants stacked on top of each other, and he's around 40 meters tall. I couldn't get sizes for Little Oars Jr. or for Watatsume, because I really wanted to get like a good comparison here, but we might find out those in later booster packs. But yeah, suffice it to say, San Juan Wolf can get really big, but he shrunk back down to normal giant size to like travel on the raft. But even then, he was too big, and the raft almost capsized. And then when they landed at that island, for whatever reason, San Juan Wolf did not walk on the island. He decided to stay in the ocean, and he enlarged himself again. So in this scene right here, I'm going to assume that because they're so close to the island, San Juan Wolf is not floating in the water. He's standing on the ocean floor. But the thing is, he's still covered all the way up to, like, here in water, so he shouldn't be able to move around that well. His Devil Fruit would still stay active, because we know that. We know that, like, when Luffy was submerged under Arlong Park, you know, he could still stretch as that he was unconscious and he couldn't breathe. San Juan Wolf is clearly above the water here, so he can breathe, but considering how much he is submerged, he should be very weakened in this state, and it seems like he's fine. He's just kind of standing, he could still talk, too. He's just like, ow, a fish just butt me down there in the crotch area. And then when Akainu shows up, and Blackbeard was like, holy crap, we gotta get out of here. Something else that I saw was that because he's so big, the whole effects of water and devil fruits don't affect him as much. So this is very weird to me. This is very strange, okay? So the only way that I could figure this, okay, if I can explain this away of why San Juan did not seem all that encumbered by being that submerged in water, is that it goes by, like, just because of his sheer size. Even though most of his body was submerged underwater, the part that was above water was still so much, like, surface area, then it still doesn't, it is not affected by the regular devil fruit weaknesses. Like, I'm just very confused here, because looking at this, San Juan should be, like, nearly unconscious. He should just be really woozy or something, you know, like how Luffy was whenever they get submerged in water. San Juan should be like, guys, I don't feel so good. And when Akainu shows up and they all cheese it the hell out of there, from what we can understand, apparently San Juan got out of the water on his own and wandered away and left along with the other Blackbeard pirates. But that shouldn't be possible either. I'm very confused by this. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I can understand him standing on the ocean floor. That's why he's not sinking, because he's so freaking huge. And I can understand his devil fruit still being active in water. But just the way he's acting here doesn't seem to be in line with other devil fruit abilities that we've seen so far in the weaknesses. But yeah, that's an issue with that. But yeah, it was also that was how he got down and impelled down. Like, they, you know, bolted him. They somehow captured him, maybe when he was sleeping or something, strapped him down with sea prism stone, and he shrunk down to, like, a regular giant size, maybe only like 15, 16 meters tall. Still really massive, but at least small enough to manage to get into impel down. So that at least answers my question, you know? But still, that's nuts. Right, so that is in fact all the information we found out about the Blackbeard Pirates in the most recent booster pack for VIVRE card for the month of November. Like I said, they left out Augur and Doc Q, and maybe we'll find out more about them later, but for right now, that's all we got. But this video is still not over, because we find some other stuff about very notable characters in the One Piece world that I definitely want to discuss here with you guys. Okay, so the first thing is, let's talk about Smoker. Let's talk about Smoker here. Smoker comes from the Grand Line. Originally. That's where his home island is, somewhere in the Grand Line. I found this interesting because the first time we see Smoker and Tashigi, they're in the East Blue. They're at Logtown, which is right next to the Grand Line. So I could see this. I could see Smoker growing up somewhere in the Grand Line, becoming a Marine, and then deciding, like, you know what, give me a position right next to the Grand Line so I can catch all the pirates before they even come into the Grand Line, you know, that kind of thing. Right before they even get to Reverse Mountain, I'll capture them. So they gave him the base on Logtown. So that makes sense. That's pretty cool. Let's see here. Just like Fujitora, he is somebody that is against the warlord system. Not really hard to see why. That was something that was kind of already brought up, because the whole thing with Alabasta and Crocodile, and then, you know, later on with everything that happened with Dofi. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear to understand why Fujitora and Smoker would be on the same page about this. Yeah, he's also confirmed to be an observation and armament hockey user. I think we already knew all that stuff. Okay. So now about Sakazuki. I think the most important thing here about Sakazuki is that it is stated his Devil Fruit is one of the strongest in terms of offensive ability in the entire series. Now, hold your horses here, kids. Hold the horses. Do not take this to mean, I think a lot of people were taking this to mean, that it was the absolute strongest fruit ever. I don't think that's what Oda's saying here, okay? I think what he means is, and I think Artur thinks this as well, is that the fruit is merely in the highest tier when it comes to destructive power. Because when you're talking destructive power, I mean, Whitebeard has the power to literally destroy the earth if he wanted to, the Quake fruits. So I think that would also be pretty high up there. But he mentions it like that, like, because it has the ability to melt through so many things and the maneuverability of it and just so many applications, like it can tear through flesh like it's nothing, you know, that kind of stuff. That's why it's considered one of the absolute strongest devil fruits in existence, in the highest tier. So think of it like that. Let's see here. There's a lot of other stuff here we already knew about. Like, he has the absolute justice, where he doesn't care what he has to do to live out his sense of justice. Killing civilians, killing his allies, he doesn't care. If it's all for the greater good, if it's all for absolute justice, that's all that matters. Him and Borsalino know each other for a long time. We do find out a little bit more about Borsalino. It just mentions here that he's not cut out to be a leader. He doesn't want to be. That's why he just kind of stayed behind and stayed an admiral, while Sakazuki and Kuzan, you know, duked it out to become the new fleet admiral. He didn't throw his hat in the ring. He was just like, I don't want to be the fleet admiral, screw that. He just wants to be a follower rather than a leader. He's still an admiral, which is a really high rank, but you know what I mean. Oh, and it also brings up for Borsalino that he is so wicked fast with his Pika Pika no Mi that even if you know observation hockey, even if you know like the basics of observation, you might not be able to see him. That's how fast he is. So only like the most adept users of observation, like I would imagine Rayleigh, obviously, who was able to fight him, but also like Katakuri, those kind of characters that have really trained their observation would only be able to follow Kizaru when he's moving that freaking fast. Okay, so now moving on to the last character here I want to discuss. It's gonna be Monkey D. Dragon, okay? First thing about Dragon, we found out his age, finally. I was curious about that for a while, just so we can place, like, how old he was when Luffy was born, how old he was during Roger's execution, in relation to Garp and all that stuff, because we knew Luffy and Garp's age. Luffy is 19 currently, Garp is 78. Dragon's age? 55 years young, which would make him 53 before the time skip. Okay, so he's 55, which means that when Dragon was born, Garp was 23 years old, and when Luffy was born, Dragon would have been 36. Okay, so that gives you an idea for all that stuff. And during Roger's execution, which was 5 years before Luffy was born, Dragon would have been 31. Okay, and it also is revealed here that sometime sometime after the execution of Roger and Luffy's birth, that's when Dragon began the Revolutionary Army. Okay, that's when, and it does state right here that he founded it. Now, I like to think, because the world government was under that much, you know, power for so long, for like 900 years or some such, there were other revolutionaries before Dragon, but they just didn't last very long, or they all failed. But Dragon's Revolutionary Army, the current incarnation of it, exists right now with like Inazuma and Ivankov and all the generals and Sabo and everything. That came into existence sometime 24 to 19 years ago. Okay, so between Roger's execution and the birth of Luffy. Okay, cool. Now, we also find out about Dragon's ship. Okay, now we actually see Dragon's ship very briefly in the flashback with the Goa Kingdom and the Great Terminal and everything involving Luffy and Sabo and Ace. And it's actually docked at Zoro's village to procure supplies. It has the figurehead of a dragon, which makes sense. And the name of Dragon's ship is the Viento Granma. Okay, not Grandma, the Viento Granma. I kind of figured this already, but a lot of Dragon's motive comes from Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution. Maybe not in the long run the absolute best motive for your character, because the way that it's supposed to be set up in the story is that Dragon is gonna, like, free the world from the tyranny of the Tenryubito, and the world is gonna be a much better place because of Dragon's influence. I can't exactly say that the reign of Fidel Castro brought peace and happiness to the entire world. I think I don't know much about Cuban history, though. I do know that the person that Fidel Castro overthrew, that was Batista, right? Correct? So, anybody from Cuba, I will admit I am a little bit sparse on this subject. I mostly am basing this off the whole Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 60s with Kennedy and Castro and everything. So, if you maybe want to enlighten me a little bit, bit on the history of Cuba and everything involving Castro, but I would assume that probably it's a little bit different from the way that Oda's going to handle it with Dragon, but there's a lot of references from this. So, viento is Cuban, or a Spanish word for wind, while the Granma is the ship that that Fidel Castro used to start the Cuban Revolution. So there's where the references are there. And also, it states that Dragon's favorite snack is something called bocadito, and that's a Cuban snack. So, yeah, Cuba. I wonder if he smokes cigars, too. That might also be a thing, you know? Okay. But, yeah, also, I read a story once. I was at Dollar Tree one night, and I was bored, and we have a bunch of, like, discount books at Dollar Tree, and there was a book about, like, random history facts that I was just breezing through. And there was actually a really cool thing I read in there. There was a story about when Fidel Castro took power in Cuba. He was giving a speech to the masses, and a white dove, like, came in and landed on his podium, or landed around him, or on him, or something, and the entire crowd went nuts, because the white dove, that's like a symbol of peace, and all of a sudden this dove comes out of nowhere, and everyone's like, he is the chosen one! You know, that kind of shit. So I remember reading that story, but that's an interesting fact. Maybe I should brush up on my Cuban history a little bit. Okay, but anyway, yeah, aside from that, nothing. Oh, no, there's one more thing about Dragon I want to mention, and this is a very ambiguous thing, okay, but it was mentioned here. I'm just going to read this verbatim. All right, so here it is. The card mildly hints that there is a possible secret about his past. However, it also says that even if his subordinates learned about the truth, they'd still follow him without a doubt. Okay, so from what we can understand here, there's something dark that happened in Dragon's past. Something that he does not like to talk about. Dragon is already not a very talkative guy to begin with. Remember the interchange with him and Ivankov when Ivankov was like, Dragon, you're always looking out to the east. Do you have family there, perhaps? And Dragon's like, keep your nose out of my business, Ivankov. You know, that's the kind of guy he is, okay? He's a man of very few words. But, so he doesn't tell people about this history, maybe not because he's ashamed of it, but just because he's very reserved with that kind of stuff. He's not a very talkative guy. But even if he, you know, did tell his entire army about his past and what happened, maybe it involves Luffy's mom in some way, I don't know. But even if they found out about it, they would still follow him because his goals, his ambitions are in the right place. He's not doing this, you know, for some weird, you know, ulterior motive or anything. He really does genuinely feel like the world has become a horrible place because of the Tenryubito. They're the problem. They're the disease. I'm the cure. This needs to be solved. And I'm going to be the one to do it. And it also states in here, like, the way he views battles are nothing more than just a means to an end. They're not something to be taking joy in. You know, like, oh, Dragon-san, we just liberated Tequila Wolf and we took out all of the jailers. I'm like, Dragon would not be the kind of guy like, woo, ladies and gentlemen, let's rally, let's have a party tonight, pizza, cake. You know, no, he's not that kind of guy. He's like, that's good, but we still got a long way to go. You know, they're just like stepping stones to victory, that sort of thing. Don't take revelry or happiness in victory until you finally manage to make the Tenryubito system collapse under its own weight and take it out. That's when you can celebrate, but not before. Okay. So with that being said, that's pretty much everything about Dragon I wanted to mention. He's a citizen of the Goa Kingdom. We already knew that. Okay, so anyway, thanks for watching. Once again, huge, the biggest, largest shout out to Artur for the great stuff that he does at Library of Ohara. Links below once again. And thanks to all of you guys. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the information we found out about the Blackbeard pirates and the stuff about San Juan Wolf being a devil fruit user? That's really confusing. Stuff we found out about Akainu and Kizaru and Smoker and Dragon particularly. Let me know below. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. And remember, be a real pirate, me hearties. Shiver me timbers! I don't think I used that one yet. That's a fun one. Shiver me timbers! I'm holding my sword backwards.